It lay silently beneath Egypt's hot sands for thousands of years. In 1922, when Howard Carter opened that sealed doorway and looked into the chamber where he said he saw wonderful things, the world encountered not just a treasure, but a legend. Tutankhamun. His golden mask is still one of the most recognizable faces of the ancient world. That calm, powerful, flawless portrait of a young man, seen in museums, has been burned into our minds. But the real face behind the gold mask was nothing like we imagined. For years, historians and scientists wrestled with a single question. Why did a pharaoh, only 19 years old, die so young? A hole at the back of the skull fueled a horrifying theory for a long time. Tutankhamun had been murdered, struck hard on the head by those who wanted to seize the throne. It was a perfect murder story. A young king, palace intrigue, and a dark assassination. But 21st century technology rewrote that story. When a team led by Egypt's chief archaeologist Zahi Hawass set legends aside and turned the cold light of science onto the mummies, what emerged was a picture far more tragic, far more complex, and one that carried lessons about humanity's genetic legacy. This story isn't only about the death of a king, it's about the rise of an empire, a religious upheaval, and the genetic collapse brought on by marriage within the family. To understand Tutankhamun's tragedy, we have to go back before his death, back to the reign of his grandfather, Amenhotep III. Around 1390 BCE, Egypt was at the height of its power. A vast empire stretching from the Euphrates in the north to the Fourth Cataract of the Nile in the south was overflowing with unimaginable wealth. It was an age of tradition and stability, but that stability wouldn't last. After Amenhotep III died, his son Amenhotep IV took the throne and launched one of the strangest and most radical periods in Egyptian history. He rejected the old gods, especially the powerful priests of Amun. He renamed himself Akhenaten and began worshipping a single deity, the sun disk, Aten. This wasn't just a name change, it was a revolution. He moved the capital from Thebes to a brand new city built in the desert, Amarna. Tutankhamun was born into this chaos. At birth, his name was Tutankhaten, the living image of Aten. But when the man believed to be his father, Akhenaten, died, Tutankhamun became pharaoh at only about 9 years old, and he was forced to restore the old order. He changed his name to Tutankhamun, the living image of Amun, abandoned Amarna, and repaired the temples. Yet when the curtain fell and he died at just 19, he left no heir behind. So what really put him in the grave? In the early 2000s, researchers were wary of doing genetic studies on royal mummies. The risk of contaminating samples with modern DNA was extremely high. But as technology improved, a state-of-the-art DNA laboratory was established in 2008 in the basement of the Egyptian Museum. The goal was to map Tutankhamun's family tree and uncover his cause of death. The team took bone tissue samples from 11 royal mummies, including Tutankhamun. The process was incredibly delicate. The resins and oils used in mummification could have degraded the DNA or stained it black. For months, scientists worked to remove this black liquid and isolate usable genetic material. The first major question was, who was Tutankhamun's father? Candidates included his grandfather, the presumed father, Akhenaten, and the mysterious pharaoh, Smenkhare. The answer was hidden in an anonymous mummy found in a mysterious tomb in the Valley of the Kings, KV55. The names on that mummy's coffin had been scraped away, as if the person were cursed forever. But DNA analysis proved a direct father-son relationship with Tutankhamun via the Y chromosome. Even more importantly, the DNA also confirmed that this individual was the son of Tutankhamun's grandparents. When historical records and age estimates were combined, KV55 was almost certainly identified as the heretic king, Akhenaten. So Tutankhamun's father was found. But the real shock came with the identity of his mother. To locate his mother, researchers examined a mummy known as the Younger Lady, discovered years earlier in a side chamber, carelessly left on the floor. The DNA results were a perfect match. This woman was Tutankhamun's mother. But the data on the screen revealed an even more disturbing truth. This woman, Tutankhamun's mother, was also his father's sister. Tutankhamun was the child of 2 full siblings. In ancient Egypt, incest within the royal family, marriage within the family was common, meant to preserve pure blood and keep political power consolidated. It was also believed the gods married their siblings. But biology doesn't bend, not even for kings. Sibling marriage increases the chance that harmful genes will be duplicated, making genetic disorders far more likely to appear in children. Tutankhamun carried the cost of this tradition in his body. The elegant, powerful young man we see in artwork was an illusion. CT scans and genetic analyses revealed the pharaoh's true physical condition with brutal clarity. Tutankhamun's left foot had a deformity known as clubfoot. Part of the bones in his foot were decaying due to necrosis, tissue death. It would have been extremely painful and made walking nearly impossible. When researchers opened his tomb, they found 130 walking sticks. Some were ivory, some ebony, long interpreted as mere symbols of power. But science told a different story. Those canes weren't symbols. They were necessities. Tutankhamun was a disabled young man who couldn't walk without support, living with constant physical pain. Even in tomb paintings, while other pharaohs were shown standing during hunting or archery, Tutankhamun was depicted seated. It wasn't artistic preference, it was physical reality. So what finally killed this weak, sick young king? In 2005, scans proved that the hole in his skull had been made during the mummification process, debunking the murder theory. But the cause of death was still unknown. Researchers searched for traces of infectious disease in the samples, and what they found completed the final piece of the puzzle. DNA from the parasite Plasmodium falciparum, the most dangerous form of malaria, was present in Tutankhamun's body. It was one of the oldest genetic proofs of malaria ever identified, and he had likely contracted it multiple times. In a healthy person, malaria isn't always fatal, but Tutankhamun wasn't healthy. He was already battling a genetically weakened immune system, decaying foot bones, and chronic infection caused by necrosis. The scans revealed another crucial detail. Shortly before his death, Tutankhamun had broken his left leg just above the knee. This wasn't a simple fracture. It hadn't healed, and it was likely an open wound. Now the scenario became clear. Not murder, but a cascade of misfortune. A body weakened by incest, chronic bone disease, a sudden accident causing a severe leg fracture, and then, right at that moment, a violent malaria infection attacking the system. His body couldn't carry that burden. The immune system collapsed, infection spread, and the young king, still in the spring of life, likely died in great pain. Tutankhamun's story also marked the end of an entire dynasty. DNA tests on 2 tiny mummified fetuses found in a small, heartbreaking box. In his tomb showed they were his daughters. Their mother was most likely Ancestry, named on objects found in the tomb, and also believed to have been his half-sister. The genetic burden was so heavy that Tutankhamun and his wife could not produce a healthy heir. With the king's death, the 18th dynasty, Egypt's brightest age, ended biologically. The throne passed first to viziers, then generals, and eventually to the line of the Ramesses kings. The newcomers did everything they could to erase the Amarna period and Tutankhamun from history. They scraped names from temple walls and toppled statues. But in a strange twist of fate, that attempt to erase him saved him. Because he was forgotten, his tomb was never found by robbers. And thousands of years later, modern science broke his silence. Today, the bones lying in that museum tell us not only the story of a king, but of a human being. Beneath the gold, the masks, and the divine titles lies the tragedy of a young man who struggled to walk, lived with illness, became the victim of his genetic inheritance, and tried, unsuccessfully, to continue his line. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more archaeological and historical videos. See you in the next discovery.